if you'd be kind enough, introduce yourself and rock and roll. Go ahead.
My name is Johnny Clark, a.k.a. John Clark. I was born right across the street here, across from the firehouse in 1942. Yeah, 42. And I lived in Orange up until I was like 25 years old. So, Jimmy?
Jim Ewen. I was born here in Orange and lived in 615 Lambert Road for my entire life, except for 10 years I lived in Texas. And my family came to Orange in 1838. My great-great-grandfather bought approximately 400 acres for my grandfather in 1838, and so I have a long history in the town of Orange. So I don't know if my friend John, we've known each other since kindergarten, if he's aware that my great-great-grandfather bought the farm for my grandfather from an Adolphus Clark. And this Adolphus Clark had owned the property and sold it 2 different times, the second time to my great-grandfather. So there's a lot of history there. And
I didn't know that. I didn't know that, no.
Jim, did you do like dairy or did you do produce or both?
No, I think what happened was my great-great-grandfather, Dennis Andrew, had more or less like a subsistence farming. So they had some cattle, and then when my grandfather was born, 1840, he decided to, he was a graduate of Yale in engineering, and he worked in California as a surveyor. And when my great-grandfather passed away or was sick, he came back to Connecticut and took over the farm. And at that point, he decided to make the dairy business more of a business than being subsistence. And then, so the barn originally was built around 1840, and then in 1898, there was a big extension added to it because they needed the volume for hay to feed the cows during the winter. So yeah, it was a dairy farm my whole life. And I remember very vividly that in the summer, we let the cows out for pasture, and we had different pastures around Tower City and Lambert Road, and actually going down to Old Tavern Road. And we actually walked them down the center of the street. And then in the evening time, we'd bring them, as kids, we would have to go get them from pasture.
And we do the same thing, yeah.
And bring them back to the barn. And the cows all knew what stanchions to go to. I don't know how they knew that, but sometimes when you had a fresh cow that had just had a calf, they'd get the whole thing messed up, and all the cows didn't know what to do, and it was like a Chinese fire drill.
And they also left quite a mess on the road, I might add, as we were going up. So the newcomers in town would get all messed up because there would be all sorts of stuff in the road, and we'd stop traffic, right?
Right.
And then they wouldn't go into the pasture, they keep going. We'd have to go around and shovel them in and everything. But I remember these newcomers, and listen, it's cows, what are you going to do, right? So that's my addition to Jay's story, but we were pushing them, and we had a dog named Shep that was very good at wrangling them too, and she'd bark at him and get them into things. But same basically with Jay, we used to ride them because we right on Orange Center Road, right out here, because the barn, you're sitting in the house. The barn's back where the parking lot is. I think you're sitting where my grandfather's bedroom is, right about here. But there was we drive right down the road. We come down this way, and then we go all the way down towards High Plains School, and we'd be right in the middle of the road, and there'd be cars behind us, and you know, some of them you could say were impatient. They'd be honking the horn and they'd be flying all over the place. But yeah, same. It was an adventure to say the least. And of course, the younger you are, the more you got to drive the cows, right? Because
Yeah.
you
And
know.
we were summer, we were barefoot the whole summer. So when we would drive the cows back up the road, they just came off pasture and they were loose as geese. And we would slide
always
through
wore
it with our
shoes.
bare feet.
I was never. I get like the stuff between my toes, so I always wear sneakers. So and he's got. But yeah, it was the same story with Jimmy, and those were some of the. And I remember riding a few of them. My father used to get mad at me. We'd jump on the back of a few of them, and you'd ride them up, and you know they didn't go very fast, but you know, and ride them into the cows. So yeah, that was an adventure with when you're getting the cows and you know trying to get them come boss. Remember batting the the buckets to get them to come out and stuff. So it was the same thing. And the heifers were a pain because they'd take off like.
Yeah, they didn't.
The milkers were fine because they were slow and they were had a lot of milk in them. So the heifers they were all over the place. So.
How large were their herds?
I don't know.
We tried to maintain 30 to 32 milking cows, and then there would be maybe 15, 20 young stock that were maybe yearlings that were going to have calves, and then the older cows that couldn't produce anymore, they were sold, and then the new ones took their place.
I'd say we were about the same size, but my dad, he passed away. So before I got to be an age where I could remember, because I was only 5 or 6 years old, I can't really remember how many cows there were, but I remember there was a lot of them. And I would say about the same. Wouldn't you, Jimmy? Somewhere
Yeah.
in that vicinity, because that's what you could really, with the acreage we had, that's really what you could afford with the silage and to feed. And they were all the same thing, all milkers. They were all Holsteins. Holsteins, yeah.
Well, Johnny's father got an award 2 years in a row for, excuse me, the best farmer in Connecticut or something. I can't
It
remember
was
exactly.
Greener Pastures contest.
Yeah.
And he won it for all of New England, actually. And we went up to the big award. It was up in Eastern States, and it was quite a thing. So he won it for the state, and then he won it for New England. And I still have the trophies, the silver trophies. Yeah. But I think he put a lot of DDT and stuff or juice on those crops, and I think that might have had a problem. But no, it was quite an honor to go up and met the governor and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, he was a good farmer. In fact, just before he got sick, he had put in a deposit on a 1,000-acre farm in North Carolina because he felt that there was no future for farming in the state of Connecticut because of the development and you got to produce milk in bigger herds, and you couldn't do it. And the developers are buying up the land and stuff. So. Yeah, he did that, and again he got sick, and he died 4 months after that. So, but he saw the future of dairy farming in Connecticut and Orange as not being a good future because of the factor that there was just, there wasn't a lot of land left, and the price of milk and the commodities and stuff, and you had to get a bigger farm really to make any money. Yeah. Most of the time it was working. Well, Jim's father did the same thing. I mean, he'd get up in the morning at 4 o'clock. And he'd come home at 7 o'clock at night, and every day, 7 days a week. There was no breaks. There was no nothing. He had a hired hand, but that was still you had no paid time leave. You had to milk those cows, and if you didn't milk those cows, milk could go bad. So you really had to do it. So I saw him, and I remember my mother used to make him hang his clothes outside because everything smelled erroneous. And I remember as a kid getting up in the morning, and I'd go down and I could smell the stuff my mother was, she'd leave it outside. But it was a tough life, but he wanted to continue with it. But he felt that the way to do it would be to go somewhere where there was more acreage and land and money. But so that kind of ended when he passed away.
Put me in a time frame. Is that like
1951. He
Okay,
passed
so
away
we're
in
talking
51, so you're
post-war.
talking 48, 49,
Right.
50. Yeah.
because it does seem like prior to that, the farmers were buying up parcels and farms and everything within Orange and increasing their sizes.
Right.
But-
That's why he bought your uncle's
Yeah.
farm, which was, you know, Paul Wright. And I remember because we had this here,
Yeah.
and then we bought that parcel over there so we could go down Tyler or Meeting House Lane.
Right.
So we combined them both together. But he still didn't feel it had enough, you know, potential with the milk production and stuff.
Yeah.
And what they were getting for milk is, you know, it was a Brock Hall Dairy we used to sell to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brock Hall Dairy would come and pick up the milk, and we had them in big cans. And the big thing about that was you were the man if you could pick that can up, right?
Yeah.
You put it in the cooler when you were like 8 years old. That thing weighed what, 60 pounds, something
Well,
like that?
it was a 40-quart can, and the can itself probably weighed 20 pounds. And in those days, we had a refrigerated tank, and you had to lift
Right up for the up into the
40-quart
tank.
can and
About
put
this
it
high up.
down inside the tank.
And you were the man if you could do that, because they had
Yeah.
that would weigh. You know, seen an old milk can, right? The
Probably
cap, the
100
cap
pounds.
weighs like 10 pounds. You know, the finally put on it.
How many gallons was a can?
Well, it's 40 quarts.
40 quarts.
40
Yeah. So,
gallons, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, and then what we do is we put them in there, and then, you know, they had to come pick them up at a certain time because the water
Yeah.
would chill. And that was a good place for the guys to put the beer in and soda. Soda. And look down, there's a bunch of beer down there. It was a giant cooler. So, yeah, Jimmy had the same thing. But that was a big deal, was able to do that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then people don't realize how tied people were to dairy farming, because you had to milk in the morning, you had to milk in the afternoon, and as time progressed into the late 50s and early 60s, there was less and less people that actually knew how to milk the cows. And if you didn't milk them the right way, you could you could destroy their udders. So my parents never went anywhere on vacation, maybe, you know, once every 3 or 4 years.
Same with my dad, Mom.
Because
Yeah.
you couldn't find anybody that could come in to milk the cows or wanted to do it, you know. And so.
Well, one of the big advent with the automatic, the surge milkers. That
Yeah.
was a big help because we had the automatic milking machines, and you put them on with a strap and they would actually milk. But prior to that time, you had to milk them by hand. And Jimmy and I could milk a few cows, couldn't we, Jimmy?
Yeah. So I have to tell a story about John's father hired this man. His name was Bill Kilnan.
An Irish boy.
He was Irish, and he was probably in his mid-late 60s. And he lived in this little one-room shed
Right back
that
over
was
there.
right here on this property. And he was, I don't think I ever heard him speak a word, but he lived in this, no electricity, no heat.
Nope, just beer cans.
And I had a paper route, and I would deliver papers. But when I had to go to collect money, I was scared because I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. I was scared to go in and collect the money. He never gave me a hard time, but it was always, it had
It was like down with the trees where you had to go into like
Yeah.
underneath the trees.
It was kinda
It
scary.
was terrible.
He had a few
My father was a
Jameson bottles
slumlord.
laying on the floor.
Yep.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, he used to, I remember a few times he did a couple tilts. Oh yeah, he known to have a few, as one might say. My father would go, all right, Clan's gone he'd be gone a bender for a couple of days,
Yeah.
and then he'd come back, and we didn't see him. I saw him drunk maybe once or twice, and when he went good, you know. Boom, and I remember that. I remember my mother would say, oh, you know, he's just dizzy, Johnny, he's just dizzy. And I go, yeah, he's dizzy already, Mom. So
he was there to milk.
he was there to help.
help, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, actually, quick story here. We had a silo, you know, and we used to blow the silage up in the silo. Remember the big silo we had back
Yeah.
out here? Anyways, he was helping my father, and we loaded. My father had bought a loader that you could blow the silage in, the corn silage in, and had a tailgate on it like this up, and you would hold it up. And anyway, so lo and behold, somehow the stick came out and took Bill Calan for a ride about 20 feet in the air because it was swing down like a tailgate. And he came in, and oh my gosh, he was covered with blood. And good thing my mother was a nurse and stuff. But going back, there was a lot of hazards in farming too. A lot of people got hurt in farming.
Yeah.
You were dealing with equipment all the time, and you're getting kicked by the cows, and you get kicked by the cows. I think the worst thing about the cows was when they peed on their tails and they swap you like this. They go around, right, Jim?
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Some of the cows,
Well,
they
I'm
all
sorry,
had personalities.
You said to say what I wanted to say. But anyway,
each-
I know that'll be cut it out.
No.
all the cows had personalities. They did. And when you would kneel down to milk and put the milking machine on there, there was a strap that went around. You hooked on the strap.
Some were easy, some weren't.
And they just wait until you kneel down, and they would swat you with their tail.
Yeah. So yeah, and also so the thing. I remember as a kid, my mother, one of the cows got loose, and my mother or whatever told me, go sit over the side, get away, because they were running around. Well, the cow had obviously some let's put it as head diarrhea, and walked by me, and just all over me from head to toe was just, yeah. So that's another story for another time. And my mother said, you keep those boys out of the barn if that cow's come around. So, yeah, we have all the stories, right, Jimmy?
Right.
Yeah.
We had in our barn, we had a track that went down the center of the barn.
Manure cart.
And there was a cart that ran up and down the track. And what you do is there was a trench on the right, trench on the left, and you had to shovel the manure into the cart. When the cart was full,
Pulled it out.
you roll it out to where there was a manure spreader, and we had a wooden plank that you had to walk down this plank and guide this thing. And if it had a lever, you tripped a lever and it would dump into the manure spreader. And it was a couple times I lost my balance and went in the manure spreader up the air, And then
I'll tell you what, in the spring when it was muddy out, being on a farm was no fun at all. I'm just telling you, when there was mud out there and there was all the excretions, it was not fun at all. And the pigs were even worse. Remember the pigs?
Oh,
my
yeah.
God. So,
Pigs.
yeah. So, but I go back though. But what an upbringing it was. I mean, it was a tough life, and I just kind of wish that whatever. But Jimmy hung in there longer. My mom had to finally sell all of the assets of the land. We kept the farm itself, but she had to sell the tractors, all of the cattle, everything. And I remember I had one cow was named Jingle Bells, and I remember pleading with my mother not to sell Jingle Bells, and she said, Johnny, I got to sell Jingle Bells because my dad owed some money on some tractors and stuff. I knew he was going to die. I figured he took out a 20-year loan on something, so yeah. But it was, and then after that, Jay took off more, and I kind of went on to cars. So I went to cars from cows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had, what was his name?
Clay Pilbro.
Kate Pilbro. He had, on the farm here was a shed that he had.
Stock cars.
He would race stock cars at Savin Rock on Saturday night.
That's what we used to go over. Yeah.
And so we would go over there as kids and try to help him do whatever needed to be done to the engines and the cars and the tires and stuff. So that's how we kind of got a mechanical interest in rebuilding stuff. And
he became almost like a father to me because he just was a really nice guy, and his wife was really nice, and they'd bring us in, and then my brother would come over and screw up everything because Johnny can't do that, I'll get that. But the biggest thing was that they asked us to drop oil pans. That was our job. That's when you go underneath and you go like this, and all the oils. Send Johnny in, get that oil pan off, and he'd come out. My mother would come home and say, "Oh my gosh, dropping oil pans again, John?" I said, "Yeah, dropping oil pans." But it was really quite an education, and he was really nice people. And she rented the whole area here, basically the shed over that side, which was back there. That's where he used to keep all the stock cars, and then the barn was vacant for a long time until. We used to store stuff in there. We rented out for storage, but it was really the main barn. And I think that was vacant, and then funny, I think in 60 or 61 they sold the whole thing to the town of Orange, which is this, where you are right now. So yeah, but there was a time period there that, you know, they'd come in with all the cars. Then the neighbors get mad when he started up his you know, his stock cars. Oh, they're making too much noise over there. Remember that? We said, well, we loved it. We were like, so we had a beaten path. I did from over here to here, you know, back and forth, because it was, you know, it was easy walk, and we'd ride our bicycles over and stuff. So yeah.
Well, my mother was a den mother. Then we were Cub Scouts, and he would walk from his house, which is over here behind the green, down Tyler City Road, across where the old Derby Melford Railroad used to come through there.
Right.
And it's kind of scary, but at night. But he'd walk over during the daytime.
Get a mist under you know,
and
like
then
fog.
When the meeting was over, he'd have to go home, and we would terrorize him because, you know, the monsters were going to come out of the railroad bed and chase him. And so
man, I ran through that thing like.
you wouldn't think today of your kids walking on a road like, you know, a mile away, but
Yeah, we did.
do you think we should tell them about the lime?
That's completely up to you, partner. I didn't have anything to do with that one.
I don't know what precipitated this, but in order to keep the bacteria count down in the farms, in the dairy farms, the farmers would spread lime on the floor. And so one day on my paper route, I'm coming home, and his brother, he wasn't involved, I don't think. It was his brother and a couple other kids had taken paper bags.
Al Slitter.
It's Al Slitter, yeah. Had taken paper bags about that big filled with lime, and I got bombarded on my bicycle. But somehow it was my two brothers were responsible because they had done something that precipitated it.
Yes, they did.
And I to this day I don't know what it was. But anyways, up on Lambert Road and Sullivan's, just north of where we live, there was a root cellar that was buried in the ground, and they came out of the root cellar bombarding me with these bags that would break, and I had them all over my bicycle, and but it was just fun, you know.
It was fun because it's lime, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine if that happened today, we'd have lawsuits everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that, yeah, because I remember, and then his brothers kidnapped my brother and threw him in a lime cellar and locked him in. For how long?
Oh, the root cellar, yeah.
How long did they lock him in? They literally kidnapped him and brought him into the root cellar and locked him in there for beating up on Jay.
Yeah.
And I said, where's my brother? I don't know. They put him in there for about 8-9 hours or something in the root cellar, locked him in. So that was payback. But that was Jay and I got along fine. It was the older guys that were, you know, and then we had skippers, you know, Skip, yeah, something. So yeah, we had some really good times. And then I think Jay kind of, and I got into cars more because of the association with this over here. So I had bought my first car when I was 10. 10 years old, I was driving a car, and not on the highway, but around the lots, remember?
Yeah, yeah.
And what I do is I had a paper route. I inherited it from Welly, right? Was it Welly's paper route?
Yeah.
So what I'd do is I'd get a bunch of guys together, and I'd split up the route. So, and I'd send two guys down this way, and I'd give them rides on the what we used to call them, what the heck was the name of that? It was, I had a name of it, but Lulabelle. And Lulabelle was an old Plymouth that we had chopped the back off from the front seats back and put boards on it to make it into like a pickup truck. And it had one big headlight on the top like a Cyclops. And we used to run that around the fields, and my mother would go crazy. And then we'd go down to Platt's Orchard and we'd pick up the windfalls, because they didn't mind. The windfalls were okay, you just couldn't pick up the trees. So we come back with a bunch of windfalls and we'd sell them for, I don't know, 5 cents a piece.
Where was Platt's? Tell them where Platt's Orchard was.
Well, Platt's is right down in the back by the swamp right across. Yeah,
that's Wolf's Park now.
Wolf's Park's now, yeah. And we go through the stone walls. We had paths, so we could run in there and get the stuff, and then we sell them for. And that was entrepreneurial.
But the fun was to do it at night without the lights on, to see how fast you could go. Where you had to remember where all the paths were.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then somebody shut the lights off on you when you're running it. So
And-
yeah. Then we used to take in where the orchard is. We're right next to my house over there. We had a racetrack, and my brother and I, and we'd get all the guys that come over. We'd had this old '37 Plymouth, and we'd run around the whole thing. And we had like a racetrack, and we'd get it stuck in mud everywhere. And my mother'd come out and say, "Boys, you're digging a hole," because we'd get into the mud and everything. But always cars. Then one time, my brother and Skip Albert. I used to stack up hay bales and I'd run through them in my car just to see how they go, and I had a football helmet on and I put baler string on my belt. Well, that was fun, and they'd bounce off the car. Well, Skip and Pete decided they were going to, I didn't watch it, stack them 3 deep with braces. So normally it was just two or three hay bales. This was like, boom. So I'm ready and I go through, all of a sudden, bam, it stops. I go flying forward. The radiator goes into the fan belt, and oh my gosh, wrecked the whole front of the car. And they come up, well, we didn't know it would do that much damage, Johnny. I said, you wrecked my car, so, but those were.
Is that when you decided to run the car down the hill?
No, that was later. Well, we had the other adventure that we had. The guys are going back to college, and they wanted something spectacular. So I said, I got something for you guys. See this old car? I said, we're going to run it into the swamp. So I got on the and Skip was involved too, and Jimmy and a bunch of guys. And so I got on the side and revved the engine up, because you just have throttles in there. You can pull them out. And I popped the clutch, and I had tied the wheel with baler string to have it go straight into the swamp. And instead of going, it took off, and everybody's looking at it. All of a sudden, it goes like this, and everybody's chasing this car with the throttle wide open. It goes down the hill, takes an abrupt right into this guy's brand new fireplace he had built. and so they call my mother up, and gee, something happened to the fireplace. Now, keep in mind, the wheels are still spinning. So we're trying to tell her that it rolled down the hill, and the wheels are still like this.
That we owned up to it, though.
Yeah, we owned up to it. We spent time replacing the whole, we rebuilt the whole fireplace. But
Now, his brother, George, is a piece of work, and he decides one day he's going to drive a 47 Jeep across what used to be called Tin Bridge. That's over near your place.
Whipple, yeah.
And it was there used to be 2 stone abutments from the railroad that crossed it, and you could climb up these abutments and dive in the water. Anyways, he gets halfway across the Whipple River, and the Jeep dies.
Floods up. The whole thing was like this.
And John calls me and asks me if I could pull him out with a tractor. And I don't know how he got a hold of me, because we didn't have cell phones or anything like that. So anyways, I go over there. My father sees me driving out with a Farmall H. He says, where are you going with the tractor? So I got to go help John with something. So we go over there, put the back down into the water so that it's up to the axles, put a chain on and dragged them out.
And then it started lightning. We had a thunder. Remember, the thunderstorm was coming. Oh my gosh! And Jimmy pulls him out. No.
His brother would drive to school to Amity with a bomber's helmet and goggles and the windshield down, and
don't forget the snorkel mask.
Yeah,
he put a snorkel mask on. With the double things that come up. He put that on, and he pulled right in back of the school bus. And somebody goes, "Hey, Johnny, is that your brother?" I said, "No, it's not my brother."
So he goes on, he became a physicist, worked at Sandia Labs for years and years, and
he worked
very
for your
smart
father.
kid.
Okay. I don't remember him coming down.
Yeah, he was.
There were a bunch of people in and out.
Yeah, he worked for your dad first, and then I worked for him afterwards. Yeah, I worked for him. He worked for him 2 years. Yeah, yeah, he was a piece of work, wasn't he?
He was.
He still is.
So
We're talking about having a crazy brother. That guy was. But anyways, we're talking about good times in Orange, right?
I wanted to ask, was working on a farm like a job that was passed down to you because you were brought up in a farming family, or were you genuinely like interested in it and wanted to do it? Was it something that you kind of were like forced into, or was growing up around that, you were naturally drawn to it?
Well, I think it was a combination of what you wanted to do with your life when you're 16, 17 years old.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could see that the farming in Orange was on its way out. There was no way you could be a dairy farmer in Orange in the late 60s, even before that. But my parents tended to hang on because they didn't know, well, what's the alternative? So it was kind of like you did want to do it, but you knew there was really no future in it, and you had to, you were kind of forced to
Go on with it.
go on with it. And
Yeah, I myself personally, I want nothing to do with it. Because I saw him get up at 4 in the morning and work and have no money, honestly. I mean, you were just scraping by. And I said, I don't want to do that. And I said, that's just, that's just not something. Now, I think if the situation might have been different if you were in North Carolina or a dairy farm place where there was a lot of opportunity and you want to take over the farm because you know it's going to be succession plans and but there was, like Jim said, there was no future in Orange. So I just said, that's not for me. I see this poor guy working, 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week, and what's he got out of it? He's got to go sell eggs to make, literally, my mother have to sell eggs to make enough money to offset things. So I said, that's not. And then the cows, would something go wrong with the cows, and the vet would come in, and the vet bills would be there, or we'd have, all sorts of these things. Your equipment breaks down, and you got a new tractor, or you buy a new tire, and the tire costs whatever, He was always behind the 8 ball in it. You really couldn't make a good living in this environment as a farmer. So my answer would be no, I didn't want to do that. No.
It is interesting with you saying that, because Jeff Wilson, who we interviewed yesterday, was actually just mentioning the same thing about how dairy farming wasn't really an option at a certain point, and then they were forced to change it to a different, change their, what they were.
Right. I mean, you could have gone into other things like growing, a lot of them went into vegetables, corn and things of this nature. But as far as, the dairy part of it, quotes unquote, which I grew up with, well, we did corn.
Right.
We did corn, potatoes. Corn and potatoes were the basic ones. I remember doing the potatoes and stitching the bags up and then hauling these 50-pound bags and putting them on the, a potato wagon with, the potato cultivator. That was up in the barn for years. I think I still got a piece of it over there somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see the long term in it. So.
And then what made you guys decide to stay in Orange and live here, even after deciding to stop the dairy farm? Was it the community, or just being raised in Orange, you had a lot of great memories here and wanted to stay?
Well, for me, I graduated from Liberal Arts College, West Virginia, with the Bachelor of Arts, and then worked as a social worker, God forbid, for about 6 months. And then I decided now, I went back to school, UConn, and got a Bachelor of Science degree in wildlife biology. So my interest was, I worked for the Forest Service for several years in Idaho, came back home, got married to my wife, and then worked as a chemical technician for the Upjohn Company and got transferred to Texas. We lived there for about 10 years, and then came back because I was transferred back here with my job now with Dow Chemical. And so we ended up purchasing the place we live in now from my family's estate, and continued on here. It was a great place to live. Orange is really a great place. It's changed dramatically since we were growing up as kids, as far as the nature of the community, but it still has the old flair Some of the old timers are, you know,
Now we're the old
still
timers.
around. Yeah, we're the old timers. We never thought we would be that way, but that's where we are now.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
I basically flew the coop here in '66. I went to college. Came back to the University of South Carolina, and then I went to New Haven College and finished up getting a degree. And then I had an opportunity to work for a place called Janalco, which was in North Haven, which was a contractor supply place. Your dad used to buy stuff from them. And I worked for them. And I got into sales. And of course, I had the background for the construction industry and knew all about teeth and blades and chain and all that sort of stuff. And then opportunity to work for them, went out on the road for them. And then I looked for other developments. Then I found this place, which was actually in West Hartford. And it was Faxon Engineering, which I own now. I bought it. But that was probably the succession. They were in the hydraulics business, which was the future. Before, with the construction equipment, most of it was cables and things, and hydraulics was the way it was going. And these guys are big into hydraulics, so I thought that would be a good future advancement. So I ended up getting a salesman for them, and I moved up to Simsbury, Connecticut, and I've been up in that neighborhood ever since. And then in '73, I bought the company from the owner, and I've been owning it ever since, so I still own it. So I took the afternoon off. So going into my lunch hour now, guys. But anyway, so that's my story. So but they're in the hydraulics business. We do a lot of stuff with Electric Boat, Sikorsky, you know, a lot of those guys. But that's a different story. But that's basically my thing was get out of here. I was sick of being tired. It's, are you Hannah's son? Are you George's son? No, I'm John Clark. I'm John Clark. You know, you get that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. So, you know, and I really, you know, just that's basically what happened. You know, it's all timing, and you know, it's
all about opportunities.
opportunity. Well, I saw this opportunity, and I decided. And back in those days, the thing was, you go where the job takes you. If you want that job, you got to go there. You know, you can't just stay home and work out of your house. You got to go there physically. So I was a sales guy for them for, I think, a salesman for 11 years. But I was vice president for 6 of those years when I went up there. So. And we had about 35 employees at the time, and we were all over Connecticut. And actually, they found me out because I took an account away from them. So they said, "Who is that guy?" So they came down and solicited me, and they hired me, and I went up there. So, but as far as I was looking, basically, you know, it's just whatever predicts. Who knows? I might have, you know, stayed around here. I don't know, but there was opportunities, and I took those opportunities, which led to that.
Just real quick, from growing up in an agricultural, you know, a farming background, what sort of effect do you think that's had on your work ethic? Just, you know.
Oh, you get up, you learn to get up, and you learn that nothing's gonna. You got to do something. You can't just sit there or not do something. It physically has to. I think the physical part of it was the biggest thing. You got to get up and you're physically doing a lot of stuff and not using your, well, using your head end, but there's a lot of physical labor in
Right.
farming, a lot of physical labor in farming. But I felt that, you know, it's something that, you know, you got to, I don't know, you can't sit on your butt because you can't just think, the day's going by, you got to get up and go to work, right?
well, you learn very early age to be innovative, and if you lived on a farm, something was always breaking.
Oh, yeah,
and you
absolutely.
couldn't hire somebody to come in and fix it. You had to learn how to fix it yourself. And I still remember my father plowing in the field, and with the tractor, Farmel H, and the carburetor choke cable came off, and he looks around, he sees a staple or a piece of barbed wire, and he puts that in to hold the choke cable back in, and off he goes. And it probably stayed that way for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
You know, because he.
He's right. He's absolutely right. That's where the mechanical part for Jimmy
Yeah.
and I come in, because you had to be mechanical. That's where you got into the cars.
And I think you learned, for us, for me, you learn a routine. You get up in the morning, you take care of the cows, you come in, try to get ready for school, get on the bus, And my parents never took us to school in a car. We always rode the bus, even when we were seniors in high school. And so, yeah, it's a different America now than it is than it was then, and hopefully it'll stay that way. But
I just have one more question, unless you have.
No, I was gonna go Bicentennial.
Oh, okay, great. So this will be really quick. And kind of bouncing off of what we were just talking about with growing up in an agricultural community, what do you think made Orange such a great place to grow up in?
say that part again.
What do you think made Orange such a great place to grow up in when you were growing up at that time? Like, so what made it so great growing up? Because obviously it's different now, and what makes it great is kind of different than what it used to.
Well, I think you have a combination of the farming people,
Camaraderie.
and then you had an influx of other people, diverse people coming in with different business ideas, and that's continuing to make Orange a great place.
I think it was a sense of community. By that I mean we had all my cousins and uncles, in my case here, right around the green. I mean, my grandfather was here, my uncle was here, my uncle was over there, my cousins were out of there, so it was just like a community right around the green itself. And I think that helped a lot growing up because there's a lot of support functions, and it was a sense of community. Yeah. And there still is around here. I see you go to West Haven, but this agricultural has stuck here in Orange, which, a lot of those towns have lost that. You guys still have the agricultural fair. You still have a lot of agricultural activities going on, which I think is great. Because a lot of these towns, they get all, whatever, and they lose a lot of that. And I think that Orange has kept that spirit going. I used to come down for the horse draw and all that sort of stuff, and then, so I think that's probably, it's made it kind of a, I don't know what the word is, quaint? I'm not sure what the word is, but it's kept it kind of low key, in my opinion. I don't live here, but it's kept it kind of, an agricultural base with the things you do. So. But I think a lot of other towns have turned into metropolitan, oh my gosh, look out, there's a tractor on the road. We complain about it, or there's too much noise, and you guys seem to go around with it, so that's kind of what I see from kind of coming back down here and seeing what it is, so.
No, that's right on key. I mean, we do, the manure spreaders still go down the middle of the road and hold up traffic. The bird scarers are still trying to get the birds out of the cornfield, and people are learning that that's just part of being in Orange.
Correct.
So I think we're lucky enough that we're hanging on to some of these quaint traditions.
Well, I remember when we used to have the gun go off for the crows, and everything go off. Everybody complained about it, and because we had an Avon, everybody's in an uproar, and around here, I'm sure they complain a little bit, but so what? It flies, hey, if you got your crop out there and it's worth money, and you got a bunch of crows hammering at the pieces, and you got something that'll shake them away, so what? Once every 5 minutes you hear a noise. I mean, what's the big deal? We used to say that, boy, the city slickers come in. Remember, Jimmy? Yeah. We used to have an opinion, which we won't go there, but we used to just say, but anyways.
So Bicentennial has been another topic that we've all been talking about, and talking about how just even getting the land cleared. Again, we pulled together all of the local farmers have helped out, the 4-H groups, the Cub Scouts, and so on. And we know that your dad was a viable part of the Bicentennial, because he was someone who really took over the oxen, and we could have him, taking the pictures and everything, I think, of him. And so I think this year, if someone hasn't approached you, I think you've got the job already, that we're going to need a model to stand behind our fabricated oxen.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's Jimmy.
Ready. But the Bicentennial, I think, has been a wonderful addition since we've had our celebration 50 years ago.
Wow.
That kicked off that country fair, and that's such a focal point of our town, I think, now.
Well, it's funny because one of my notes here was that we used to have the Orange Fireman's Carnival was on the green.
And that's the other.
It was
Yeah.
right on the green. It wasn't down at High Plains. It was on the green. And I remember as a kid listening to the music and, you know, looking out the window and see if I could sneak out. And then they'd have the dance over there. And they'd build the floor. The firemen build a floor and they'd have a dance. And that was right across the street from my house. And that was there for years. But that was the Orange Fair, you know. And remember running across there when I was a little kid. So little things like that. And you still got it at the Fireman's Carnival. So little things like that are important.
I remember that there was several years where the state decided they couldn't have the Fireman's Carnival because they had roulette wheels and they wouldn't allow any gambling. So it was like maybe 5 or 10 years where there was no Fireman's Carnival. And then it came back again once the laws changed or something, I don't know, but yeah, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I remember my mother and father were involved in the Bicentennial, and they had this big ball, and my wife was there as well, down in at the Yale Commons. And everybody got all dressed up in tuxedos and formal dresses, and so it was a big deal.
I think my mother was involved in that too, wasn't she?
Oh, sure, yes.
Yeah, my mom was very active in the town. So was my father, actually, going back. He were state representatives from my father in 1947, 48, 45. He was about 4 years. He was state representative for the town of Orange. And then my mother got involved in the early 60s, and she was state representative until they did the Bethany Woodbridge and Orange consolidation. And she was also started this Orange Historical Society. She was the one that started this whole thing. Plus, she was chairman of the Zoning and Planning Commission for years. And so my mom was very, very active in the town, which you know. She was the Stone Otis house over here was her one of her pet projects, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it was. So she was very active in that, and I think she was active also in that area too.
I think the give back in the town is amazing. When you go back and really see the people, and even going way back, we talk about all the different hats they wore when they first, you know, basically settled here. But if you go back and you really start looking at the names of the people who've stepped forward to say, you know, I'll be on that commission, I'll be on that board,
Yeah.
or I'll start this project, and it's a lot.
There's a sense of community here. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it, and I see it when I come down from, you know, other places, and I just see like this. I mean, this is pretty neat. I mean, I said to Marvelous, I said, hey, I don't know what to do. I said, oh, don't worry. I said, well, you know, you get me behind a mic and I'm going, you know. And she said, well, don't be saying anything bad, she said. And I said, I'm not going to say anything bad. Never mind. And so, but this is part of the community.
Just edit it right.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys can cut it out. But no, it's really an honor to be. And thank you for asking me. It really is an honor to be included in this. And you know, we're probably. I mean, gosh, he's kindergarten together. We've been best friends for 75 years or 78 years, whatever. I mean, that's a relationship that bodes to the you know what it is to be an Orange guy. You know, that's a long time to have a buddy. You know, through all sorts of stuff in our lives. But yeah, we did it. We did the 4-H thing too.
Yeah,
The 4-H
yeah,
thing,
4-H.
Tractor driving contest, which I beat him. And then we had we go to the 4-H fair, remember, in North Haven, and we do that stuff. And then we had cows that we used to show, and then you know, all those things, a sense of community, which I think is great to grow up in. And his mother was great. She was spearheaded a lot of stuff. Not just that, we remember her 4-H club too.
Yeah.
But Helen was a very, very really nice lady. The only thing we used to get my mother upset is when she'd have the Boy Scouts over and have them cleaning up feeding the cows and shoveling the poop. My mother would come back, what did Mrs. Ewen have them doing today? We go, remember?
Yeah.
She'd get them all together, it'd be about 10 of the little kids.
She was a conniver.
Oh yeah, and my mother would go, you're not supposed to go over there and have Helen work you to death. Come back. But anyways, it was good. We enjoyed it. Well, Jimmy and I always got along, so we enjoyed it. But oh my gosh. So my mother would come back and she'd go, what's you got you doing now? I said, just part of the deal, Mom. Don't worry about it. So.
Good physical activity, though.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
that's
It was
great,
for yes,
Definitely.
for my physical therapy program.
I'm still kind of in shock that this used to be where your house was.
Yeah, this is basically
barn.
where the house was. the farmhouse, right about, and I can't put it through this, and then where the parking lot was the barn.
Yeah.
And where the playground was the field. So we had, the milkers were here, and then I remember being in, when they put the addition onto Mary L. Treasure, which used to be Orange Center School, by the way.
Yeah.
I used to look out the window and see all the cows and my father, because I could look out the window. And then when they were building that, we used to go underneath the tunnels because they had put foundations.
Oh, I remember that.
And we'd
That was
hide
fun.
under there, nobody
Yeah.
could find us. And yeah, it was good. So this was really home. I mean, this was it. And we go back to Benjamin T. Clark, which is way back in the 1800s, which I don't know how far back. Jim's got more, I don't have the numbers, my brother would, but I mean, it's probably mid 1800s. So this was our home, 5 generations basically. It was Benjamin and Benji, and then the 4 brothers, which were my grandfather and his 3 brothers. And that's what started this, you know. So yeah, he was. So there's a lot of heritage here. That rock right out there, that's right on the corner. I used to sit there with my brother and wait for people to let us, somebody come and take us across Orange Center Road. We'd sit on that rock, which is still there. Imagine that. That's 70 some odd years ago. And we were young. We were like 3 or 4 years old, and we couldn't cross Orange Center Road without somebody coming to get us. And we had a horn, and I couldn't squeak. My brother would step on the horn and go boop boop boop, and a bell, and somebody come and get us from the, somebody was working on the farm, or my father, or my grandfather, or my uncle would take us, or my mother would take us across the road, because I was born not born, but that's our first house was right across from the firehouse. And I was
Emerson.
and every time the siren would go off, it freaked me out, because you're like, it's like a fire. It goes off here, right? So yeah, so that's how close I am to this. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the memories are such that it just, I think for us, we've been just putting pieces of the puzzle together, and it's amazing how things just are weaving together, and the families and the development of Orange, how it just really kind of morphed into where we are now.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
But it's on the backbone of a lot of these older families that have started it.
And the rights.
Yeah, we've been kind of busy in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. It's wonderful to hear and
Well,
to share this.
Well, it used to be the Clarks, the Treats, the Wrights, and let's see, who else was there?
The Rogers, the
Andrew?
Andrews,
Yeah, a bunch of old farmers.
Exactly.
That's where it started. It
Yeah.
was the farmers.
Yeah.
Then there was Wilson H. Lee down on the Post Road, which was the printer.
Yeah.
Remember him? That was there forever. That's the printing company. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my mom worked down there for a while
Did she?
when she came up.
Yeah.
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 And even we were talking about Doris Knight. Doris and Frank both worked down there, and they were getting a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, like nothing. But I think it was an opportunity again for people around
Yeah.
town to.
That was one of the original factories in town, as I remember.
Yeah.
Or, Wilson H. Lee. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. Do you guys have any other fond memories or stories?
Well, I do have one more.
One more?
On Halloween, someone in the Clark family would go ring the church bell at midnight. Someone would sneak in, get up to the bell tower, and ring the bell about half a dozen times and run like heck. So we did that for years on Halloween. And then we'd ring the bell, and then what would happen, we'd go into the church and we'd leave, we didn't break anything to get in, but we'd leave a window unlocked because we'd go in there on whatever, and because I was a member of Pilgrim Fellowship. I was like the VP of Pilgrim Fellowship, so I could get in there and I'd leave the window, and then my brother or I would sneak in that, and we'd go up into the bell, and midnight we'd ring the Halloween, or as close to midnight as we could, and then we'd jump out that window and run like heck. So, but no harm done, just good,
Never
clean.
got caught?
No.
Okay, good job.
I know somebody else did, but pardon me. Well, good, clean fun. I mean, good, clean fun. Didn't hurt anybody, and we ring the doorbell, or the church bell, but midnight, a bong, bong. Yeah, it's a good one, huh? Somebody's got to continue that tradition. It's gone since I left.
You had to make sure you didn't get caught.
Well, my
Yeah.
sister actually took over it, but
Oh.
yeah, Wheezy, Eloise.
Good for her.
Yeah, but she didn't ring it hard enough. That was probably. anyway, so that's the last of my stories. So I just thought I'd throw that one in for the.
Good.
For the
You know that if you got caught, the whole town would know about it.
oh yeah, because
Police department.
Johnny Clark, ring that bell. I thought so. So that's my last story. I think I don't have any. Do you have any more, Jimmy? No.
I had just one when we were kids. I don't know if you were involved, but my parents got delivery of stale bread from Bronx
Oh,
Bakery
yeah,
that
we had
they would
bread
feed to
fights.
the cows.
Bread fights.
And the guy would come in this big van and dump all the bread in the thing, and then they feed the cows with it. And in the bread, there was these pumpernickel loaves,
Oh yeah.
about half the size of a soccer ball. And we would run across the beams in the barn. The beams are about 6 inches wide, 20 feet in the air, and we try to knock each other off
Yeah,
with
with
these
the-
pumpernickel loaves.
Have you ever been hit by a stale pumpernickel bread right in the head?
Yeah.
It's about this big.
So
He's down.
that's the last of my stories.
And then we used to eat the jelly donuts. We didn't care how old they were.
Yeah.
And this was a bakery literally from the Bronx that brought it up?
No, it was called a Bronx Bakery, but it was in Bridgeport.
In Bridgeport, okay.
Yeah.
Our dad loves
Yeah.
that bakery.
Oh my,
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad used to get it too, and we'd
Wow.
get a load all
Yeah.
there too, and first we'd get it, then we'd jump in and see if we can find something pretty good. We'd pull
Yeah.
out these donuts. And
All the pastries on top, they were good.
Yeah. Then we'd come home, and it'd be this white sugar all over my face, and my mother would go, "Your father got a load from the bakery, didn't he?" "Oh yeah, why'd you know that?" "How'd you know, Mom?" So, yeah.
that is awesome. Well, I thank you
Thank you so
both,
much.
really, thank you.
It was my pleasure and my honor, actually, to come
Oh.
back to the
Yeah.
old home and tell some tales, which weren't too bad. I kept it kind of good.
No, it really, it's just wonderful to just have a feeling and a sense of what it was like growing up in Orange. And I think it was a good time.
It was.
a good time.
Yep.
You couldn't trade those memories for
Nope.
anything. I mean,
Nope,
it was.
nope. It was great. Thank you, thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay, well, thank you.